what are you currently focusing on in your practice routine right now?
That is something I'd love to talk about. Right now, and for quite a while, I mean, I spend a lot of my time working on solo guitar arrangements and then just playing. A lot of my time is spent playing, listening still. I do still transcribe. It could be anything, whatever just comes to mind, whatever. It could be an old Red Garland solo. I like to do other instrument solos now because I've spent so much time doing guitar solos that it's enjoyable and challenging to hear how other instruments, pianos has different challenges and different virtues in terms of how they can navigate a solo, and so or alto or tenor, but it is interesting for me to do that. So I transcribe other instruments. Right now and for a long time, I've still been working on polytonal arpeggio combinations of different things for altered scales, for altered usage and over diminished lines. I'm pretty obsessed with that. I'm also obsessed with odd meters, and I love that. It's part of why I do still play my drums. Sometimes if I'm writing a piece, say in 7 or in 5 or 9, I like having my kit so I can, work out grooves and just get a sense of what I might tell the drummer in my group. Here's where I'm thinking I'd like to go with this. So, and I'm always composing and writing. I have been very impacted by since everything happened in Ferguson. I wrote a piece called Ferguson Blues, and I've been, unfortunately, since then many other incidents have happened, and so I try to channel a lot of the grief or rage that I may feel at the sort of the madness going on in the world into beautiful compositions. So that's something that I'm working on always too.
Can you please share a lick or musical concept that you feel is super useful for players to have under their fingers?
I think, let's see, I don't have my guitar with me, but I will say that the most important licks are the ones that we have here. So I would say more so, I'm not a big fan of licks, of learning licks. I'm more of a fan of training your ears to be able to hear anything. And so for that, I would say transcription has probably been the most valuable thing that's helped me because listening to solos, and particularly if you get into an artist and really delve into their music, like for me with Wes, listening to so many of his solos, after a while, if I couldn't quite decipher what he was doing in a certain passage, I could almost imagine what he might be playing and then fill in the thing with a logical phrase. And so I think the more that you train your ears, the less you will need licks of any sort. And like I said, I'm not a fan of licks because licks are limiting. I mean, of course, everyone has pet phrases and things that they use, but I try to constantly be pushing myself away from that. That's part of why I like odd meters playing, because if you have a 4-bar phrase that you're used to playing and suddenly you've got, you're now in 7, what are you going to do? Right. So you've really got to be on your toes. And again, if you keep yourself in the active state of making music all the time, whether you're composing, you're playing your drum kit, or in my case, you're sitting down playing guitar, whatever you're doing, it's all part of all goes into the funnel of making you a higher level musician. So that's sort of what I would say. Train your ears and the rest will follow.
As someone who is such a master of the form, how do you challenge yourself to continue to grow?
Well, thank you for that compliment. Of course, I think of myself as still a student, and that's one of the things that helps me, because every day when I get up and I pick up the guitar, I'm reminded of things that I need to work on, and that may be being more comfortable. For instance, transcribing. One of the things that Joe Pass talked to me about was. And Bruce Foreman too, to be able to take any piece and transcribe it instantly transpose it into another key. I've gotten pretty good at it, but I'm not as good as I like. So sometimes I will sit down and I'll take a relatively simple piece, like say, There Is No Greater Love, and I'll play it through all 12 keys and challenge myself and just say, okay, am I just using a slide rule here when I go to G flat, or do I know what the frick I'm doing? And so I really challenge myself. I try to find the areas of weakness that I have in terms of maybe there'll be a right hand articulation thing that I'm working on. For instance, there's a Chick Corea tune that's really hard articulation for me on the guitar. It's called Gotta Match, and it's always played very fast. It's a fast piece. Harmonically, it's not that complicated, but the melody, which I'm sure lays very well on the piano, is not particularly friendly to us fret players. So I've had to change some of my articulation in the right hand to accommodate that. That's something. I'm always working on my reading. I'm not a great reader. I'm okay. I used to be abysmal, and now I'm okay. So that I've made progress. But I like to sit down. I did study classical guitar for a few years, and I do like to sit down and sometimes play through some Bach or some Vivaldi. I don't have fingernails anymore in my right hand, but I can still, just play through and approximate it, and I like to work on that. And that challenges me to keep those chops up and to work on my reading as well. So, and also transcribing. There's always new stuff, and there's so many great musicians. My students are always bringing in new things for me to listen to, and I'm just hearing so many cool things. And so I don't feel like a master. I feel like a student.
As such an accomplished musician, how do you balance practicing, touring, recording, and your teaching?
Wow, that is a good question. You're asking really good questions, Lisa. The best I can is the answer that I would say to you. I try to, after long tours, I must have some downtime. I don't do the touring that I used to do. When I was younger, I would maybe be gone for a whole month or 2 months at a time. And those kind of tours, inevitably, I'd get run down, I'd catch a cold, because I give so much when I play. And then there's the after the show, the schmoozing with the audience and hanging out and maybe perhaps going to a dinner with the promoter and their wives or husbands or whatever, or, hanging out. There's all that other factor. There's the marketing stuff when I was with different record labels. So there's constant energy being expended, and so I try to come back home and then just crash out. I'm a sci-fi geek, and so I just crash out on movies and popcorn and baths, bubble baths, and just pretend that I'm a normal person. And I say operative word is pretend, because I'm always thinking of my next 10 projects. I'm very compulsive. I can be in Hawaii, on a vacation with my spouse and be tapping out grooves on the sand and be thinking of things. I'm just constantly engaged in some process. But it's important to take breaks too. I've been fortunate. I have had some different itises along the way. Fortunately, never carpal tunnel. But I try to do a lot of stretching. I try to stay in good physical shape so that I can, do all the things that I do that are still very demanding. I recognize that downtime is really important, even though it's not my forte. And I'm trying to learn to relax a little bit more and just chill. It doesn't come easy to me, but I'm working on it.
What are you doing presently, and what do you have coming up?
Well, some of the things I have coming up I can't talk about because I'm sworn to secrecy, because they're exciting projects, but we're sort of keeping a lid on them. But I have a new group that I've been working with and I'm very excited about, and I also cannot say anything about it. But we are working, we're recording, we're working on things. We're coming up with some cool ideas. I think it's some really cool milieus to do what we're doing. So I have that going on, and I'm very excited about my new signature model guitar from Heritage, and so I've been enjoying that and enjoying talking to people about my new guitar and sharing that. So it's never a dull moment. Busy.
For the ladies and girls out there who would like to start getting into jazz, can you offer them any advice?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, it's very important to find people, both women and men, that will nurture you and support your music. And if you find someone that is not supportive, mañana, they're gone. Yeah. Lose them. You have to find the people that will mentor you and that will support you wholeheartedly and without reservation. That doesn't mean that they won't be able to give you, and hopefully they will be able to give you constructive criticism. But you have to receive criticism from people where it's fair and where you know that they've got your back. So I'm a big fan of seeking out the people that will mentor you. And if one person doesn't work, keep looking. It's a big world and there's a lot of good people out there. So it's your job to find them and also to network amongst each other. Camaraderie, there is strength in numbers. And I think, connecting with other women musicians and young artists that are, supportive, and where you can sort of support each other, I think is always a good thing to do. So, and learn your craft. Get really good at what you do, because I still think it's true that, for women in particular, jazz is a very hard field, and it's a very competitive field, and I'm not going to say we have to be twice as good, but we don't have a lot of wiggle room, not a lot of margin for error. So I would say, work hard on your chops, get your act together.
I hear you. Well, Mimi, thank you so much for coming and doing this interview.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Lisa. Thanks for having me. Great questions, and good luck with this vlog that you're doing. It sounds really cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you. For the audience out there, if you've enjoyed this interview and would like to see other ladies who jazz, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you know of another lady who plays jazz, or you are a lady who plays jazz and would like to see them featured on the show, please drop me a line at lisaluguitar.com. I'm Lisa Lu. This is Mimi Fox. Keep shedding.